And what about this thing that you call the hidden hand, where there are these specific people that were involved in making 9/11 happen, in politics mainly?
What I call the hidden hand, to keep it real simple, is this web. And those within the web who actually know they're making a contribution to a specific end that is very bad for humanity. That's the hidden hand, the sum total of this web of manipulation. And the one, it's going to be very, very controversial. I don't care. I'm interested in the truth, not a statue and a round of applause. Thank you very much. Very controversial is where it leads to who actually did it. And I tell an amazing story. This is part of the web, what I'm going to describe, but fundamentally, globally important and fundamentally, centrally important to what happened on 9/11. In the 17th century, and I'll make this brief, the details all in the book, a man emerged, a Jewish man called Sabbatianism. And he claimed to be the Jewish Messiah. Messiah had arrived. And he gathered behind him a phenomenal following. All the stuff about this in the book comes from Jewish sources who know about this. And he had 1 million followers at one point. We're looking at the 17th century. And he created a cult which inverted everything. This is the whole basis of it. So whatever Judaism stood for, it would invert and do the opposite. And people who want to discredit me are going to say he's saying 9/11 was a Jewish plot. I am absolutely not saying that. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. And that's why I say in the book that no one needs to read this book more urgently than the Jewish community of the world to see how they've been shafted by this inversion. And this cult became known as Sabbatianism. And so if you had a day in Judaism, which was a day of fasting, then in Sabbatianism, it would be a day of feasting. They inverted everything. So if you had a taboo about sex with children, Sabbatianism would not only remove the taboo, it would make it something to be desired, something to do. And the way they sold this in this cult was that the more evil you do, basically the quicker God will come and sort it out. I mean, you know, I know, but that's how they sold it. And this cult eventually led to a point where Sabbatianism was in the Ottoman Empire in Turkey. And he was given a choice by the Sultan to either renege on his Sabbatianism religion and become a Muslim, or he'd get business. And he decided that he would considering it, I think I'll become a Muslim. But of course, that was only on the surface. And Sabbatianism, and so many were following Sabbatianism, followed Sabbatianism within the apparently conversion to Islam. And these people became known in the Islamic world as the Donma, which means to turn. And one of the things that I show in the book is that these Donma ended up infiltrating the Islamic religion and becoming the Saudi royal family and creating, I explain the background and the history, in league with the British Empire, the Wahhabi form of extreme Islam, which manifests as the Saudi Arabian version and of ISIS, Islamic State. These are creations of the Donma, who are not Muslim, but Sabbatians, a cult, a satanic cult, which, by the way, as I make clear and Jewish sources make clear in the book, hate Jewish people, hate them with a vengeance. And what this Sabbatianism then became in the next century, the 18th century, was what I call in the book, right to present day, Sabbatian Frankism. And this is because of a man called Jacob Frank, who has been described by Jewish sources as basically one of the most evil people ever to emerge in the Jewish community. Jacob Frank claimed to be the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zevi, in other words, the Messiah, and the reincarnation of the biblical patriarch Jacob. And he took Sabbatianism onto an even greater level of evil and inversion. And every horror you can think of was a good thing and to be desired in this inverted cult. And what it then did was, as it did in Islam, was develop the technique of infiltrating communities and other religions. So Jacob Frank and his Sabbatian Frankists infiltrated the Roman Catholic Church. And they did it by posing as Roman Catholic believers, but really they were Sabbatian Frankists, occultists, what we would call today Satanists. They created Christian Zionism in the southern states, particularly of America, and the vast majority, overwhelming majority of Christian Zionists have no idea that that was the case. And there came a point, again, I'm being as brief as I can, where Jacob Frank, with this inverted satanic religion, hooked up with Mayer Amschel Rothschild, the founder of the Rothschild dynasty, and a Sabbatian Frankist. Not a Jewish person, no, a Sabbatian Frankist. The Sabbatian Frankism religion, or what you call it, cult. And those two then hooked up with a guy called Adam Weishaupt, and together they created an organization called the Illuminati, called the Bavarian Illuminati to start with. And interestingly, this cult, its Bible is the Kabbalah, the esoteric, mystical work of the Jewish belief system. And particularly a book in the Kabbalah called the Zohar. And Zohar means radiance, illuminated, and that's where Illuminati came from. And they then went about from 1776, when it started, infiltrating all these different communities and religions, and they took them over. And it was the Rothschild Sabbatian Frankist cult that created Israel, and is behind, indeed is the Saudi royal family today, is the inner circle of so many of these organizations. And I show in the book in a chapter called
The founders of Israel and the Saudi royal family are linked.
Absolutely.
Which would be shocking to hear for most people.
But it wouldn't if you do the research, because in the background, the Israeli government and the Saudi royal family have been close. And what's happened since the emergence of this utter psychopath called the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who was involved in this horrific murder of Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey, they have become even close in the public arena in many ways, because they are all basically, if you like, Donma in their different forms. And in the book, in a chapter called Atlantic Crossing, I show how this Sabbatian Frankist cult moved in on America and took over American politics, not least through phenomenal, staggering levels of funding, infiltrated the CIA, infiltrated the National Security Agency, the Pentagon, and from that were able to direct inner networks within these organizations, think compartmentalization, which together were behind 9/11.